always fall in love with the process, and falling in love with the process of getting better as far as whatever that you're into will be able to help you rocket launch your career into having more success, having more abundance, having more clarity, being able to focus, being able to be free spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally, mentally. All these different processes can happen when you stop worrying about the time and you just get to it. So I appreciate all the beings that helped me get to it. And thank you, Luke, as well. I've been seeing you my DM a lot, and I appreciate you. You're new here, so let's go and answer this question for you. Did you just say holding cell? Ain't no way. I was going to say this, but damn, all right. Last time I really went somewhere, I literally met you there. Well, literally, I wanted to tell you because I found it so funny that you came to say, I don't want to use that word, but hey, with the bowl of fruit one on your head like it's a pineal gland. My body healed so much this year that my spine felt like it was going to break, but I knew it would fix itself. After writing how grateful I was for that, I started meditating in a dream and saw my spine explode, and it did fix itself. But after that, I woke up in the holding cell. I was nervous at first when you walked in, but you asked me, how's your universe? And I shouted out, it's so amazing. Then I got polite because I became awkward and asked you, how's your universe? And you looked at me like, are you fucking kidding me right now? My bad, though. Seriously, my manners need work in that realm, it seems. I had so many questions about just this alone. If I think how to ask them, I will, but it seems like I'm asking already. Are my thoughts inside a book or something? LOL. But the point of the whole, also, yes, your thoughts are in a book. But the point of the holding cell. So what I said to you was the equivalent of not moving forward because of loops, patterns of self-identification where my ego is stored in the hard drive. Okay. You mentioned, are your thoughts inside a book or something? Yes and no. And for example, I'm going to go ahead and Google the Book of Life, right? Because I don't believe in a Book of Life. But if people put a belief system in that, let's say spiritually. Okay, God questions. Let's see what this person has to say real quick. No, we're not going to read a Bible verse. So God keeps good records. He knows his own, and he has the names of his children permanently in his book. So Revelation 20:15, we got to read the Bible shit. If anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. It makes no sense. The book, so basically the lake of fire just be an infinite loop of just your suffering, of what you forgot to realize. The book of life in this context is the set of names of those who will live with God forever in heaven. That makes no sense because we don't have a name spiritually. So what is your name outside of your name? It is the role of those who are saved. I do agree, the ones who save themselves, because you can't be saved. The same book is also called the Lamb's Book of Life, so the Sacrifices Book of Life. It contains the names of those who have been redeemed by the blood of, wow. How can you be sure your name is in the book? How can you be sure your name is written in the book of life? Be sure you are saved. Repent of sin and believe in. No, sir. No, sir. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this shit's stupid as fuck. And of course, it came from Christian and Jewish traditions. So the names of those who have been deemed righteous are chosen for eternal life. So a divine record of freedom spiritually, where a name's inclusion signifies your eternal destiny, tied into the faith you have within yourself, or in Lucifer, while absence from the book can lead to eternal death. All right, so basically, now back to your question. Are my thoughts inside a book or something? That's the book of life. Because remember, there is no life. And the thing is, there is no book. So when I say yes, realize as well, if your book is not in the Bible shit, that doesn't mean that you don't have eternal life. I'm saying that because my name is in the Bible shit. So because of that, I had two choices. I can either choose a eternal destined path for the betterment, or I can be in damnation by doing different actions that got me to come down here in this realm, which is exactly why Mastering Your Thoughts is the book that you read every single day. So that's why I say no, because remember, the book is not physical, but the book is basically mental. It's basically the vision that you see, that you embody every single day. When you embody your vision, you are now envisioning a life that you have already seen before because you're reading the pages constantly. Now remember as well, because it's not physical, you're not looking through the pages of what you expect the book to tell you. No, you create the story. You write down what you want to do, but you're not writing down anything physically. Because every step you take, every word you say, every thought you have, every action you commit, everything that you think about and commit to, that you do every single day, you consume, you digest, you see, you hear, you learn from. These things are guiding you into the book that you get to end or begin to keep on reading and continue to read on for. Because remember, we all have our own books of our own life. That's the story that the Almighty is reading simultaneously, infinitely in different realms that we are not able to comprehend or fathom. Because of that, this being on an infinite manner gets to understand that on the wavelength that it's basically seeing everything infinitely in, it becomes one. It becomes wholeness beyond the number one, because it's basically an infinite, let's say, spectrum of just zero infinite unified unisons of quantum observations that compute what energy is being in the moment. So when you are able to now alchemize all the energy outside of the technical, logical, biological space that we simultaneously plugged in as far as the hard drive, we now get to leave the computer that we program every single day, which is the mindset. Because the mindset became programmed and it became plugged in towards what we see within our mindset and neurological pathways. So every time you unlock something within your database, within your blueprint, you begin to start realizing your agreements within yourself. Remember, you agreed to open that book because that was your nature. And then you too, before that book began, you told yourself, if I'm going to read this book of my life, that literally means that you are accepting and you're going to be reading your awareness in Satanism. Because you were born into that, because remember, when you opened that book, you started to become born again. But then that's the moment you died again. Because remember, that book that you're reading already had an ending. But how can your story end when it's infinite? It continues on. So you can't go anywhere besides outside of the stage. Not only just that, I do apologize, y'all. This is my 7th video for today, so. But, so now as you exit the stage, excuse me, that's when you get to tell, and the thing is too, exiting the stage and finding a different book, because that's your library. Oh my God. Think about the Akashic Records, for example. That's the realm that we're already observing. So if you are into books, leave the Harry Potter theology alone, right? Because they demonized our spiritual gifts. But think of life or the Akashic Records as Harry Potter, because when you go into that room, there is a mass, there's rows of just books, but they're not books. They're basically lens of your perception. Nobody's in that library besides your guidance. So your guidance does not have to be those librarians who tell you what book to go to. No, because when you enter that realm by becoming who? Exactly. You're becoming who? We don't put a name on that. That's not your truth. When you sit with that, because who is that being? Exactly. When you climb into your mind, you now elevator effect. You boost yourself up. You uplift yourself because you know where you want to go. You want to figure out where this book is and where you can go in the future? Okay, read about it. Wait a minute, how do I do that? Okay, you sit with yourself. You tell yourself where you are going to go. You command the body to place the mind into where it's already been. Got it. Now you sit still. Yes, you're going to have that urge to want to do something that's more fun. You're going to do something that's more convenient for your time. You don't want to be bored. Fight through that boredom. In boredom, you find your truth. Now you sit with it and you ask yourself, what am I looking for? You don't need no help, because remember, there is guidance along the way. And that elderly figure that you see being a guide, because there aren't really images of what you perceive, because all it is just you, transparently. When you go to that section of the book that you want to open up, you're not opening up anything, but all you're doing is seeing through a prism. Every day when you look outside, what do you see? And if you say a sky, that is your lies of your awareness, your observation in disguise. You diss yourself by even disguising what you thought you could have seen. But you don't want to see your truth. That's exactly why, if you understand the archetype of Satan, you have to be able to understand that people are afraid of Satan because this being holds a truth that can help this person understand how to love themselves again. And I just made a note on that as well. I want to make sure I said that correctly. People fear Satan because this being holds the truth about yourself that you weren't ready to love on. That's how you know the book. Remember, you take a peek into Satanism. Excuse me. That's because you put your, let's say your inner knowing, your essence, you put that into an archetype or a body. You put that into a blueprint. It could be a transhumanism drone. It can be a hive mind being. It can be a humanoid. It can be whatever vessel it wants to be. It can be a different species. It can be a human being. It can be godlike. It can be an ascended master. It can be a divine being. It can be whatever it wants to be. Cool. But that's because you got into these different bodies because you knew what that love looked like. Because you were able to say to yourself, you know what? I want to realize why I was afraid to read that satanic Bible shit. I want to know why I was afraid to read that truth. Oh, my nature could do these things if I was to put myself or even experience a different life that I was loved in. Wow, I'm glad that I didn't go down that route, but I'm glad that I was able to read other beings who went down that road. Because it can help you understand what you need to start mirroring, your contradictions into becoming. Because that's not your truth and that's not your truth. That way is not good. That way isn't even bad. These ways aren't even good or bad. So what path do you understand? And yeah, somebody will say, well, you're on the fence for this book. You get a bookmark and then you hold on to the book and then you don't read it again. But that's the thing though. Remember, the story that you read is the experience that you already read before. So it's like reading the book is only you wasting time and what you freed yourself into already accomplishing, already realizing, because you remember that your thoughts are not the book, but the book became your thoughts. So every thought you have is what you're reading. So basically, I'm reading my algorithm that can help you explain your question, because there is no book to question. Because what is the book of life when there is no life that can be read? You can't even write about the book of life because you can't even create that book in life. And life can't even be created in its own lifetime. Because how can you put time to life when time isn't even alive in its own timeline? And if we are on a timeline, that means that we're not even in the timeline because we are aware outside of time and it has no line. It's an interconnected puzzle piece that cannot be shaped. And that's exactly why these things make sense to me, because I realize as well too, the things that people demonize outside themselves, they crucify within themselves. And that's how the shadow grows. When the shadow grows, now we don't want to read that book anymore. Now the book just hides and it collects dust. And that's where we forget the other observations. We're so fixated on this one book that we're not telling ourselves we had to read that, we had to create that. What are you waiting for? Don't be afraid to just put your creativity out there. You don't know who wants to read that perception or who wants to experience that lens, because remember, every time we all go to the Akasha Records, we're already being there right now. So technically speaking, every time we enter this realm, because we're already in that realm, and the realm is not a library per se, but it's basically the accessing of different consciousness that can be placed in realms that don't have a number. So you can look into a realm right now that you're living in right now, and you can watch yourself move through the emotional state of what the mind wanted to think about. It wanted to play with itself. So it gave birth to the physical. And what do? You watch it spiritually or consciously outside of both of those labels. In a different realm, let's say you leave this life, and the thing is too, when you stop looking into the prism or this firmament or this womb of synthetic thought processes, when you start looking into that, you awaken back into your dream that has no image, and you tell yourself, okay, I was aware of what I was looking into. I was aware of what I had to do. I remember who I am. I came back to source. I did everything I told myself I would do, and I made that promise complete. So now that I completed this process, do I want to keep coming back to this observation? Nah, I think I'm okay. Because remember, you let go of identities. Moms, dads, funerals, schools, humanity, society, politics, the government, evil. I mean, just different religious traditions and just ideologies. You let go of all those different things because they weren't a part of you. But that was a process wanting to attach itself to a part of you. So when you departed from yourself physically, you now say to yourself, okay, what observation do I want to go to next? And the thing is, any observation you pick from, doesn't matter how high you go, how low you are being, and where you are going to. You can put yourself in different, it's like having a shadow clone. You can expand yourself and you can observe every observation. Don't forget, I don't believe in fucking free will, but you choose to be free spiritually. But how do you do that? Get out of this. Get out of this, because this cannot enter that realm. You're already there. But the point of the holding cell. So what I said to you is the equivalent of not moving forward because of loop patterns of self-identification when my ego is stored in the hard drive. Yes, the holding cell is the mind. And it's not a cell because remember, it's like that SpongeBob and Patrick episode when they stole a balloon and they went to the police office to arrest them or turn themselves in. So when those two fish officers, they closed the cell behind them. All right, get out. That's basically what we do to ourselves. Our higher self mocks us because we imprison our own mind, because we don't know our mind within its own mindset. And I mean, we set the intention or the programming and we install the wiring of how the mind feels about itself at that moment. Because what? Belief. We put a belief in what people tell us in their own cell that they're enslaved to. And they hold their higher self hostage. So when you're holding yourself hostage, that's when people don't realize that, okay, when you become conscious of what you trapped yourself in, you now become free into what the trap isn't trapping anymore. Because the trap can only be what you allow. And we allow ourselves to be compliant and be obedient to thoughts that are in submission. So when you're dominating what you think about, you don't think about being submissive to life or even to a label, because that's how dominant you are being in your nature. Your nature could be weakened at any moment, and it can be taken advantage of by another weakened mindset. If you're not knowing of your archetype or your blueprint, you will go against yourself and read the wrong story, to where that story that you read, it puts a virus in your hard drive, and your hard drive is the reptilian part of your mind. So when that hard drive right there is not becoming in tune with itself in a higher manner for your ascension, that's when now you lose yourself in that knowing, because that's when people become remembering or put into remembrance of losing their essence. And then remember, that's when the shadow begins to grow, because they're telling themselves internally, I was not realizing what I kept demonizing. I wasn't sitting with myself because I was afraid to love myself or another part of me. So when that happens, now the virus is just installed into your, let's say, the lens that you watch life flow in. When that flow becomes disrupted, now the waves knock off your foundation. The waves knock off your illusion and inception. So you drown yourself by the flow of your consciousness that was supposed to be calm within your own storm that you clouded judgment in. So you watch a different book that wasn't supposed to be accessed by you, but you accessed it by another virus that was plugged into you, to where all you're doing is creating different sufferings and different emotions, different programs that you are becoming fearful of. And when you read that story, what can your cells and what can your database remember? What can it sleep on? What will it start practicing? You will go against yourself spiritually, and then you will lose who you were supposed to be in that phase, because now the shadow part of you has engulfed your awakening, or has engulfed your essence. So that would be the equivalent of not moving forward, because you're constantly in your mind, you're in your thoughts, you're in your desires, you're in your urges, you're in your beliefs, you're in your own conditioning, you're in what you call truth. Leave truth and lies alone. They cannot be in the same cell with you. You wouldn't have any space. When you free yourself from both of those labels, now you can sit in space, because where is space when it's in between your ears? Once people understand that the loop patterns of what we identify with is where we can now see, once we leave that loop, we look into the hard drive that the ego is stored into. We aren't stored into that because we are in a whole different motherboard or a circuit board of an energetic grid. Okay. That's why numbers run our dimension. It runs our grid by our karmic forces. Excuse me. Once you leave that grid and you see the codes of 1 through 9 accessing quantum overlappings of beings who think they're human, you leave gematria, you leave the Masonic tricks of number systems, because we are stuck in numbers. Think about it. 18, 422. I see a 16, I see a 6, I see a 4, 777, 1925, I see a 10, I see a 7, I see a 15. There's numbers everywhere, and that tells you what the spell is doing to you, because everything has a meaning energetically, numerically, mathematically, all these different terminologies. They all have a certain meaning that we can't fathom, but we practice learning about. But that's the thing. When you learn about what the hard drive is plugged into, you have to say to yourself, even though I take my plug out, I'm still plugged in. So when you're plugged into what you already taken out of your mind, you still tell yourself the things that are in my mind don't belong to me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and read these thoughts, but never attach myself to them. Now you detach from who? Your self-identification. Now this loop cannot trap you anymore because you freed yourself from your own spell casting. Because remember, the reader is the spell casting of what it has to imagine physically. When you read a book, do you put yourself in that book or in that scenario or that plot, and it feels better to read about, because now reading becomes fun when you're in the story that you read about that talks about you. Every story is about you. When you stop identifying with who you are, you leave and you unplug from all those hard drives. So every story is basically you saying, okay, I read about who they wanted me to be, but that's not me. Boom, shut that down. Shut that down. That's not me. I want to be that, or that's, but see, I don't want to be anything, but I want to be everything. But that's the thing though, I can identify with who I think I am. So when you leave who I am thinks I am is, because I am that I am not. When you understand the observation, now you understand that you have no observation. When you have no observation, you become in tune with the observation of frequency controlling, because you are the controller of the operation that was controlling what your mind was not in control of. You know, I'm grateful for your perspectives you shared already this past week, and I love who you are. Thank you. I appreciate you as well. If you enjoyed this video, celestial rising, divine afternoon, and successful night to the best observation watching this video. It's your divine reflection, divine messenger, and we are back with another message. And understand, you know, if you enjoyed this, make sure you like, and if you made it this far as well, something spectacular is happening to me today. Tell yourself that. Something spectacular is happening to me today. And I don't know what that may be. It could be a job opportunity, a new car, a new house, a phone call from somebody that you may have a crush on. You know, you got an A on an assignment. You may have gotten a new game, some new clothes, some new shoes. You got money coming in, new creative ideas. Whatever it is, you got more sleep, more exercise. You see more gains in your muscles. You are having a spectacular day. And if you made it this far, that's how I know you're a real one, because you're not just watching and then just leaving because you get bored. And the thing is, no matter what, I just want to be able to help guide you to the water and never make you drink it. So you made it this far, comment down below. Something spectacular will happen to me today. And when you say that, by the time you go take a nap or even after you see this video, say that all day and watch what happens. And comment down below if something great happens to you today, so we can talk about it in a different video. I love y'all so much. I'm gone.